Link TV, connecting you to the world. Link TV is viewer supported. Watch more at linktv.org.
Link TV presents Mosaic World News from the Middle East. Here are today's top stories.
Bin Laden threatens Americans with execution. Obama and Netanyahu reportedly still at odds. And the Iraqi Prime Minister demands a vote recount. Mosaic World News from the Middle East begins now.
Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden threatened to kill any American national who fell into the hands of the organization if the American administration executes Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and Al-Qaeda members who are on trial for their involvement in the September 11th events.
In a recorded message, bin Laden said that American President Barack Obama continues to follow in the footsteps of his predecessor.
أيها الشعب الأمريكي سلام على من اتبع الهدى أما بعد.
To the American people, peace be upon those who follow the guidance. My message is about our prisoners that you are holding. Your master in the White House continues to follow the footsteps of his predecessor in many important matters, like his escalation of the war in Afghanistan and the oppression of our prisoners you are holding. First and foremost among them, the Mujahid and hero Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. The White House declared that it wanted to execute them. The day the United States makes this decision, it will have made the decision to execute those of you who fall prisoner to us. The White House politicians have oppressed us and continue to do so, especially in their support of the Israeli occupation of our land, Palestine. They thought that beyond the oceans, America would be safe from the wrath of the oppressed. But the response came powerful and resounding on your soul on 9/11 by the grace of God. Wars have their vicissitudes, and the tide of battle ebbs and flows.
Joining us from Amman is journalist and expert on Islamic groups, Yasser Al-Zatra.
Mr. Yasser, what is the significance of this speech? Is Al-Qaeda speaking from a position of strength?
يعني بصرف النظر عما إذا كان التنظيم ينطلق من موقع قوة أو غير ذلك هو.
Regardless of whether or not Al-Qaeda is speaking from a position of strength, the 9/11 group led by Khalid Sheikh Mohammed is the most important one in the history of the organization. It has launched the most important battle, the September 11th attacks on the U.S. Therefore, it is normal for bin Laden to keep up with the group and follow the trials in the U.S. He is responding to the possibility that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed or anyone else from the 9/11 group can be executed. Bin Laden threatens to kill any American hostage that falls into the hands of Al-Qaeda, which can happen. Americans can be taken hostage in many areas within the Arab and Muslim worlds, not to mention that the Americans can also be directly captured in Afghanistan.
Since when does Al-Qaeda keep American hostages alive, regardless of whether they are captured in Iraq, Afghanistan, or anywhere else?
No, Al-Qaeda has tried to negotiate prisoner swap deals. Perhaps this is what bin Laden has in mind by demanding that the prisoners be kept alive. Maybe he thinks that the organization can, at some point in the future, take American soldiers or citizens hostage. He does not seem to have a problem with that and exchange them with Al-Qaeda members held in American prisons. This explains why he felt the need to reiterate the message to Al-Qaeda leaders, members and supporters that the organization does not forget its members if they were to be imprisoned.
There is one exception in Mali, when Al-Qaeda in the Arab Maghreb made a prisoner swap deal involving Mauritanian and Algerian prisoners.
Ideological organizations, regardless of whether or not they can achieve such prisoner swap deals, always want to reassure their members and supporters by reiterating the message that they will not be forgotten if they are captured. The message is that they will be liberated using all possible means and that their condition will be followed up on. This is the moral aspect of bin Laden's message. There is another aspect of the speech that confirms the links between the Palestinians' plight and the September 11th attacks and most of the battles that al-Qaeda has waged on the U.S. In most of his recorded speeches, Osama bin Laden has focused on the Palestinian plight. Another aspect of bin Laden's speech is pointing out that Obama is following in the footsteps of his predecessor, George Bush. Many Arabs and Muslims may agree. Obama is now replicating George Bush's policies. The hope that Obama will change U.S. policies towards the Arab and Muslim worlds has evaporated.
Mr. Zatra, what you are saying is not new. President Obama's policies are clear. Obama has been in the White House for a year. Why did bin Laden choose to speak about Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and his comrades now?
Perhaps bin Laden feels that some American circles are demanding that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed be executed due to the nature of the accusations made against him. Therefore, as the commander and spiritual leader of al-Qaeda, he felt the need to tell all those concerned with this issue that the organization will not forget the men who worked and fully supported him. This is the moral aspect of the message, and it is important for ideological and resistance movements, Islamic and non-Islamic alike.
Yasser Al-Za'atra, journalist and expert on Islamic groups, joined us from Oman. Thank you.
في تفاصيل النشرة أخيراً The Israeli media reported that the outcome of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to Washington was negative and affirmed that the crisis between the two countries has been aggravated. The press reports contradicted Netanyahu's attempt to downplay differences which came to light during his discussions with U.S. President Barack Obama. Meanwhile, the White House stated that the talks between Obama and Netanyahu, who just concluded his trip to Washington, did not succeed in resolving the clash between the two countries.
President Obama has asked Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for certain things that will build confidence with the Palestinians and lead to proximity talks. The disagreements between Israel and the White House remain. The president also asked for clarification on future Israeli settlement plans in East Jerusalem.
في اجتماع افتقر للصور المعهودة التي تجمع بين القائدين ومن دون أي مراسم أو
Obama met with Netanyahu in the White House on Tuesday, and the regular formal procedures were excluded from the meeting, which is probably an indication of their tense relations. Their meeting did not conclude with any agreement or progress that the two sides could announce. According to sources close to the American side, the two parties talked about issues related to the final resolution, including Jerusalem and the borders, which could help with the settlement issue if the areas that will stay in Israel and the areas that will go to the Palestinians are specified. This is an issue that the Israelis had previously refused to discuss, as they prefer to talk about security matters. According to the American sources, the U.S. wants Israel to concede on some issues and take some steps that would convince the Palestinians and the Arabs to negotiate with Israel. According to the Israeli side, during the meeting, Netanyahu promised to slow the construction of settlements and to stop building in Jerusalem's Arab neighborhoods. In spite of that promise, the approval for the construction of additional settlements in the neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah in Jerusalem coincided with the meeting, which angered the American side. However, the Israelis are saying that the approval for building was granted a while back, and that it is not a new announcement, but merely a technicality.
هنالك أزمة سياسية حقيقة الآن
Today, there is a real political crisis between President Obama and Mr. Netanyahu. It is political, and it might not die out in the next 3 years. However, the two sides are aware that there is a need to continue the strategic relationship.
Another issue proposed by the Israelis was the idea to revive the Syrian track, and this was done for two reasons. The first is to pressure the Palestinians to return to the negotiation table and to reduce their preconditions in case Damascus is persuaded to negotiate. The second is to disrupt the Syrian-Iranian relations. The meeting between Obama and Netanyahu lasted 90 minutes, and after the two leaders consulted with their advisors, it was followed by another 30-minute meeting. This meeting came at a time when the relation between the U.S. and Israel is going through a public crisis that has generated a lot of attention. The reason being Israel's refusal of American demands to completely freeze settlement construction and its insistence that building in Jerusalem is different than building in the West Bank.
The Prime Minister also added that he sees no difference between building in Jerusalem and building in Tel Aviv, and we differ on that characterization.
منى الشقاق العربية.
منى الشقاق العربية, Washington.
Good evening and welcome to IBA News, coming to you from Jerusalem. There is no indication today that last night's White House summit between U.S. President Barack Obama and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu produced the hoped-for thaw in relations between the two leaders. Joining us now from our Tel Aviv studio with more on the summit is IBA's diplomatic correspondent, Leah Zinder. Good evening, Leah.
Yes, hi, Yochanan, and you're absolutely right, unfortunately. Even though the Prime Minister's aides are saying it was a good meeting, the signs, and that's all we have to go by at this point, the signs are not so good. First, there was the ban on media coverage of the summit imposed by the White House. Netanyahu was practically smuggled into the Oval Office, and to make things worse, just minutes before Netanyahu entered the White House, news broke of the final approval given to 20 new housing units for Jewish families in Sheikh Jarrah in Jerusalem, the same plan that sparked White House fury when it was first broached 8 months ago. And then came Netanyahu's mysterious second unscheduled meeting with the president. What happened last night, according to a U.S. official, was after an hour and a half of talks with the president, Prime Minister Netanyahu asked for permission to consult with his top aides, which he did, we're told, in the Roosevelt Room in the White House. Netanyahu then requested a second meeting with the president, which lasted for just over half an hour. So what happened? The Prime Minister's office will not say a word, but it is possible that the President expressed his displeasure with Netanyahu's position on Jerusalem, a position the Prime Minister made crystal clear in his AIPAC speech, and Netanyahu may have then tried to come up with additional goodwill measures short of a construction freeze in Jerusalem to try to satisfy the U.S. demands. Well, today Israeli and U.S. teams are continuing to talk in Washington, but the way it looks now is, even though the White House is keeping the discord under wraps for now, the next few weeks and months could be a dramatic testing time for the Prime Minister and for his coalition. Here, in any case, is what the U.S. State Department spokesman expects from Israel and the Palestinians.
If your question is there a win-win proposition as part of this, the answer is yes. Ultimately, both sides will have to compromise and come off, stated, firmly held, emotional positions on Jerusalem, on refugees, on borders, on security, on other issues. Are we satisfied with the exchange and the seriousness with which the Prime Minister has taken our concerns on board? We are. And this is a conversation that has involved the Secretary, but obviously today will involve the President as well. We have addressed the Israelis and expressed concerns about what they have done recently, including the announcement regarding the 1,600 housing units, and likewise we've addressed publicly concerns that we have about Palestinian actions on the ground and concerns that we have about incitement towards violence.
ونبقى في الشأن العراقي إذ التقى الرئيس العراقي جلال طلباني مع رئيس
Iraqi President Jalal Talabani met with Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki for the very first time after the March 7th elections. Al-Maliki and Talabani discussed efforts exerted to form a new coalition government, but they did not clearly indicate if they would come together to form an alliance.
Iraqis are waiting for Friday, the day on which the Electoral Commission will release the election results regardless of the objections. Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, the head of the State of Law slate, tops the list of those demanding a recount. Al-Maliki is looking for what seems to be a way out. In case he does not get the majority it is expected he will get. He met with Iraqi President Jalal Talabani, the head of the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, which is part of the Kurdish Alliance Coalition. It seemed that the two sides wanted some sort of cooperation, but they would not frankly disclose plans to form an alliance against other groups.
God willing, our efforts will lead to a new government.
The country today is about to give birth to the new government and parliament, and the political process is about to be reinvigorated. This is what our talks focused on. As usual, we reached a complete agreement, and God willing, it will be maintained.
ليست تلك المحاولة الوحيدة فخلف الأبواب المغلقة تجري محاولات لم تتجاوز حتى الآن.
This is not the only attempt to forge political alliances. There are leaks that al-Maliki is talking to his fierce enemies behind closed doors. The satirist who ran in the elections under the Shiite slate led by Ammar al-Hakim, the head of the Supreme Council for the Islamic Revolution in Iraq. According to prominent members in al-Maliki's slate and the satirist movement, the talks were positive and even included who should be the next Prime Minister. However, they said that this was the most difficult point in the ongoing discussions.
أن تلك أصعب القضايا في المداولات الجارية كما رأى البعض أن محاولات فتح قنوات بين المالكي.
Political observers believe that the talks between al-Maliki and the satirists were aimed at eliminating any chance of a future alliance between former Prime Minister Iyad Alawi, the head of the Iraq list, one of the main components of the Iraqi slate, and the satirists, who could have enabled Alawi to become the next Prime Minister.
أو على الأقل لا يميل للتحالف مع المالكي الذي يصعب أن ينسى الصدريون عملياته.
Some satirists don't like the idea of forging an alliance with al-Maliki due to the military operations he launched against them and his refusal to release satirist followers from prison. In this context, an alliance is likely between the National Shiite Coalition and Alawi, who is al-Maliki's strongest opponent in the elections.
ونظرا لتقدم قائمة علاوي على قائمة المالكي في عدد الأصوات فإن هناك من يرى أن
Alawi's slate is ahead of al-Maliki's, but some believe that he will be willing to respond to many of the satirist political demands if they forged an alliance with him, because it could enable him to face al-Maliki.
موقف الصدريين أيضا أنهم سيفوزون على الأرجح بالعدد الأكبر.
The satirist position will also be strengthened because they won the largest number of votes within the National Iraqi Coalition, which means that they will have the largest number of future parliamentary seats.
تشكيل الحكومة العراقية الجديدة
Regardless of future alliances, there are indications that the new Iraqi government, which will witness the withdrawal of American forces, will face a difficult test in overcoming sectarian divisions. Amir Sultan, BBC.
In an interview with Al-Manar television station, President Bashar al-Assad discussed the issues of the region and the situation in Lebanon. He affirmed Syria's keenness to see Lebanon's national unity succeed and confirmed his support for its institutions.
Personally, since the 1990s, I've believed that Syria's interference in Lebanon's affairs was harmful to Syria. Today, after Syria left Lebanon, I can confirm that interfering in these affairs is not in our interest. Our position is clear. We support the presidency and in turn we support the President of the Republic. We had supported past presidents, such as President Crowley, President Lahoud, and in the same way, we support President Michel Suleiman, and we support the other heads of state since they represent the Lebanese government. If we had some critiques or remarks toward any president or official with whom we have a direct relationship, and especially the three heads of state, it is because we have the confidence, the capability, and the means to directly communicate with them and say anything we wish. As far as the talks that are going around, Syria does not stand behind bloodshed or attacks. I hope that the Lebanese would exclude Syria from these affairs today and in the future and in all similar matters. I hope that my response is unequivocal. As we have done in the past, we won't comment on such things in the future. But since you asked me, I hope that this is clear in regard to all issues involving Lebanon. Exclude Syria from them. We want Lebanon to take clear positions with respect to its relations with Syria, Israel, the peace process, and in regard to security and stability. What matters are these issues, in addition to the brotherly relation between the two people. But it's not in Syria's interest to take a stance on daily Lebanese affairs, and we refuse to do so.
Mr. President, have you considered Walid Jumblat's statement to be a sufficient apology?
يعني لو قال شخص لآخر أنا أعتذر منك.
If one person tells another, I apologize, then what do they mean? They mean that they have made a mistake, and Walid Jumblat affirmed it in numerous interviews. What matters to us is the substance. Syria is not looking for an apology or a specific gesture, and we don't have a superiority complex and are not seeking triumph. It was framed within that context, but this does not represent our values, and we don't need to prove ourselves.
أنفسنا عندما يكون هناك عندما تطرح المقاومة سلاح المقاومة على أنها.
We're not happy when the issue of the weapons of the resistance is brought up by calling it a disloyal act, but afterward becomes something to support, or when Syria is an occupying country, while the Syrian army is the one that defended Lebanon in various times in its history. This is the context that we want. We want to get back on the right track. I'm not simply talking about Walid Jumblat. I'm talking about the basis used by Syria in its relationship with the different factions. When we said we want a meeting, we didn't mean let's set a time and place.
والزمان نحن نبحث كما قلت عن لقاء بمعنى المواقف لكن
As I've said, we're looking for unified positions, but when an individual leaves his natural family, society will not stand by their side and they will be humiliated. This applies to the homeland and the national status. However, when one returns to his family, his dignity is completely restored. Syria, as far as we're concerned, is welcoming of friends and current or past foes. As long as they're coming into Syria, their dignity is preserved.
5 NATO soldiers have been killed in a firefight in southern Afghanistan. Government sources in Kandahar said a NATO convoy came under attack in Pashmul area. ISAF, however, has not confirmed the report and says only 1 soldier was killed in the attack. The latest casualty brings the number of foreign troops killed in Afghanistan so far this year to more than 130. That's a significant rise on the same period last year when 78 foreign soldiers lost their lives. This comes as the US plans a troop surge in the war-torn country by August. Well, let's cross over to Fayez Khurshid, our correspondent who is joining us from the Afghan capital, Kabul. Fayez, we've just had there more NATO casualties in the south of Afghanistan, some differing figures on that. But of course, we've also had some civilian deaths as well, haven't we?
Well, yes, Nargis. Actually, violence is escalating in southern and eastern parts of Afghanistan. The south and east of this country are believed to be the main strongholds of the Taliban militants, and Afghan sources are telling us that the U.S. forces were ambushed by the Taliban militants in Ali Shah district of Khost, a province in eastern Afghanistan bordering Pakistan, and the heavy clashes ensued. And as the U.S. forces were facing heavy resistance by the Taliban militants, the U.S. forces launched 2 rockets from their base. The Taliban militants were the main target, but these 2 rockets didn't reach to the intended target and hit a house, killing 2 children and wounding 4 others.
The Sudanese government delegation submitted to the joint mediation team its demands for joining the upcoming peace talks set to take place in the Qatari capital, Doha.
Meanwhile, the joint mediation team continues to exert efforts aimed at bridging the gap between the various political movements expected to join the Darfur peace talks.
The Doha-led joint mediation team intensified its efforts aimed at bridging the gap between the political movements on one side and between the factions and the Sudanese government on the other. These efforts came ahead of the anticipated peace talks set to take place in Doha. The delegations will meet jointly or separately. The Liberation and Justice Movement, LJM, and the government delegation are currently holding debates to resolve some of their differences.
We at the LJM are working diligently to boost the positions of the participating political movements. We're currently holding talks with the government to resolve the main issues hampering the agreement. The Liberation and Justice Movement is committed to the ceasefire agreement. The Justice and Equality Movement is currently studying and analyzing the framework agreement. We hope to launch the talks soon, either collectively or separately.
The government negotiation team has submitted a list of conditions as the basis for joining the upcoming peace talks. The head of the Sudanese delegation said that his government and the Liberation and Justice Movement have agreed to form committees to tackle their points of contention.
We are currently in contact with the Liberation and Justice Movement. The joint mediation team requested that parties study the framework agreement and report back to them. In response, we have submitted a detailed review. God willing, today or tomorrow, we will form committees to discuss the issues of disagreement. Following this framework agreement, we will, God willing, be able to move ahead with the peace talks.
Meanwhile, the Sudanese embassy in Doha and the civil society organizations continue to exert efforts aimed at bridging the gaps between all sides of the issue in an attempt to push the negotiation process forward. In doing so, the mediation team organized a number of meetings and forums attended by all sides of the peace negotiations.
The views expressed on Mosaic are from contributing broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible from support of viewers like you. Thank you. Watch Mosaic World News online. Stay up to date with breaking news. Read our blog. Get transcripts of past shows and more at linktv.org/mosaic.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.